Season 2 of Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender dropped this past Friday, and we have been waiting years to get back into the show. I have now completely binged it all, and I am ready to talk about it in full with you all. I hadn't done a full binge like this in a very long time. I fully watched it all on day one, to the point where I stayed up way longer than I probably should have, and it took quite a lot out of me, so I was just very exhausted that day, and that's why this review is a day late. And for some of you, that probably allowed you to finish watching it all in time over the weekend, so that you can watch this review in which I will be talking spoilers inside of it. I have a mix of opinions to talk about that is going to lead to an interesting conversation, so I look forward to hearing what you have to say, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. So I do want to start with the good parts of Season 2 first, because everything this season did well jumps out way more as far as an improvement on where Season 1 left a lot to be desired. In particular, one of those areas was the production of the show. I've talked about this before in past videos, but Season 1 did have a troubled production, and a very messy one, where they had to reshoot a lot, and they also used a heavy amount of green screen and volume technology to put our characters in all of the locations that we know best from the cartoon. Season 2 completely flips that on its head and actually takes us to those places through the great city of Vancouver, Canada. Seriously, I cannot tip my hat enough to everyone who worked on the production through the cinematography and how they created all these very cool looking sets that do replicate many of the locations that Book 2 takes us to in the cartoon. Probably my favorite shot from the entire season is a moment when Zuko and Iroh are walking towards the camera, and the shot is just wide enough to where you can see the mountain range in the background, and it looks stunningly beautiful. Netflix absolutely did not waste a single cent on the production design, and if you are curious, this is going to be the same for Season 3. They shot both seasons back to back, which means they shot it all again in Vancouver, so I'm going to be very curious to see how Netflix imagines the Fire Nation in live action. If anybody from the Netflix production is watching this, great job. Please keep doing this. This is the perfect way to go about making a television show. And yes, it is warranted that I say that, because the people who have made the show are watching our videos. They are taking our feedback. This was something that they clearly saw people make reasonable criticisms about. They heard the feedback on this, and it was well communicated, which is why they made the changes. And that's a good segue into the next part of Season 2 that is vastly improved from Season 1. The new changes they made to the production design ultimately helped to improve the way the action looks. Visually speaking, it just looks so much cleaner and better in quality, and I have to say, I do think it is very annoying that there are people out there who are dogging on the way the visuals look. Because you have to remember, at the end of the day, this is a television show. This is not a movie. They are working with a television show budget. The scene where they are going through the Serpent's Pass was impressive. I thought the serpent looked good, and it looked like it was movie quality at times, even if it does look very CGI, which is the point. Props to the visual effects artists who worked on this season, because they did a good job with what they were given. The action is way more fluid this time around, and the camera is allowed to move around more freely. Most of the action from the cartoon is very chaotic and sporadic, and the best way that you can replicate that is by shooting it the way they did. I was also most impressed with a lot of the hand-to-hand combat as well, when there are times where a character has to fight with swords or when they can't bend. To that point, most of the stuff with Zuko as the Blue Spirit was pretty dope. Zuko showed that even in the cartoon, when in a position like that, he was still well trained enough to handle himself and use his swords to one-up on people. I also appreciate that there was a lot of callbacks to moments in the cartoon where there were unique ways of people bending to do something, like with Toph as she's riding back to Ba Sing Se after being captured, or when Aang in the Crossroads of Destiny final fight uses the crystals in the cave to create a suit of armor that, like in the cartoon, didn't do anything for him and he got blown back a lot by it. It's things like that that show appreciation to what's cool about bending. You can do just about anything, and I'm glad the live-action adaptation took steps to depict that. My only criticism of the bending still stands from when I broke down the trailers, and that is the fact that the earth bending still looks weightless when it's in motion, and I just wish that there was more weight to it than the way it is shown, so hopefully that can get fixed for next season. In my opinion, they got Toph right for the most part, if we are now on to talking about the characters in general and their actors. She is one of the biggest things for people coming into the next season that we all wanted to see done well. She's witty, sarcastic, and jokey the way we know her to be, and she kicks ass. Miyako, who plays her, even does a great job honing in on those mannerisms that we know her to have. I enjoyed seeing her training Aang and earthbending through a fun montage just like the cartoon. There are a lot of actors who have standout performances, and the acting altogether was improved, given that that was also something that people wanted to see be better from season 1. Iroh and Zuko are still one of the best parts to each episode when they are on screen. Dallas Liu absolutely crushes it as Zuko. He is probably the best actor in the whole show if I had to pick. I do appreciate that he got toned for this role as well. He got even more jacked than before. As far as an underrated performance goes, and one that I think is the perfect representation of her cartoon character, is Momona Tamada as Tai Lee. She is great and really nails down that character from the way she speaks to even how she looks in action when she's doing her chi blocking moves. For the main group of Aang, Sokka, and Katara, these are definite improvements as well, and these actors have gotten older, so they are learning. Katara is more included in during bigger moments, and even though I still believe it was a little odd to include the Painted Lady arc into this season, Kiawentiio did nail that character down from the look, and I just think that this main group of characters were enjoyable enough to help carry what scenes they had together. They spend time together to have fun, and they even have their moments where they have to get into disagreements and split up, just the way it went in the cartoon. And now, let's talk about where I am a little mixed on what Season 2 did, which is everything to do with the story and how the timeline of events are edited and paced. Coming into this season, we had already been talking about the fact that there were possibly going to be episodes that either didn't get adapted, or the ones that did would have some changes to how they would be shown off due to it only being 7 episodes. I made sure to write down as many notes as possible when taking it all in. With the decrease in episodes, we don't sit with these characters for as long in many instances where it was probably warranted. While there are a handful of scenes that jump out due to them being able to breathe and give the characters time to develop and have emotional moments, there are also a lot of others where you can tell that things are being rushed. The first one that comes to mind is at the very beginning of the season, when Aang and the gang travel back to Omashu to free Bumi from prison. This scene goes by extremely quick, and I do think it probably should have been given a little bit more. We are talking about an old friend of Aang's who he believes is meant to be his earthbending teacher, but when he also learns that he has to let Bumi still stay in prison, that might really affect him, but it just happens very nonchalantly, like we are expecting it to happen. And you'll probably hear me use this word a lot, but there is a nonchalant component to the way that the show was written this season that does stand out, and you can see it in the way the show is paced and how it is edited. Another example that stands out is when they first reach Ba Sing Se. It didn't fully occur to me that they had reached the outer walls until we actually see that they are inside the walls. I think that it just felt a little too casual that they reached the Earth Kingdom's biggest city, a place that we spend so much time in, and it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. I think a moment like that would really come out to us and make us go, wow, look at that! Kind of like how the characters did in the cartoon. And so with that in mind, if there is one area that could be refined next season, it would be the editing and pacing. We have a full year to go before Season 3 drops next summer, so they still have time to work on it, and we can give them some feedback on how to course correct. Because it is good that they made the episodes longer, even if they decreased it by 1 episode in total. Having longer episodes where stuff is given a chance to breathe and we can sit with these characters more is what makes for great television. So this is just another area that I would hope is looked at for Season 3. When it comes to the actual story and lore itself, like I said, there were several episodes that were not adapted. We didn't get the swamp, we did not get the drill, we did not get the stuff with the guru and learning how to control the avatar state via his chakras, and we also didn't get Avatar Day. They play around with the timeline of events quite a lot through each of the 7 episodes, and there are times where it does work, and there are others where I don't think it did as much as I think it wanted to. The key to remixing the timeline of events is to make scenes build naturally into the next, with clear cause and effect, consistent character progression, and these emotional payoffs we know best from this season in the cartoon that are earned. If the order disrupts the story's momentum or makes character decisions feel rushed or disconnected, it leaves a lot out for fans to want to see. For example, let's talk about when Appa gets taken. It is no longer in the desert this time, even if it is outside of Wang Shitong's library. For me, this not being done at the beginning of the season doesn't allow for Aang to deal with it as emotionally as we do see him in the cartoon. He was distraught from losing him, and Appa also spent way more time alone than in the live action, where he is basically found out not that long after. Given how important the animal companion is to the Avatar, I was hoping that I would have gotten a little bit more emotional from this because these two characters are awesome together. You love their friendship and how much Aang cares for him. I even think without the added context of an episode where Aang goes to see the guru to master the Avatar state, there is a level to his powers that maybe is a little too heightened for my liking, and I think there is a way that the writers play around with that is a little off-putting. If I had to guess, I think everything to do with Wang Shitong's library is going to be the most divisive, because there is a lot changed here. Aang is able to bring everyone into the spirit world on his own to get inside. That's an ability that I don't think the cartoon ever truly established, and so there are times where it feels like his powers are a little buffed. Admittedly, there is some cool stuff shown in the library, like how we get a visit from Avatar Yang Chen and Kyoshi. In these instances, I see where the writers are going with tying in these two characters and trying to add a little bit more lore to them. Even though you would never expect that Kyoshi would ever get the chance to speak to a non-Avatar person, she does talk about how, in her time, she was able to track Sozin's comet, and her diary of it is how they are able to learn of when the solstice will come in the present time. I think that's pretty neat and cool, even if again, it is very unexpected. Something else that I think people will find very unexpected is around this season's main villain, our girl Azula. There are times where you can truly see there is nothing but pure evil inside of this character. I think that is something very consistent with the cartoon. She is just that way. There's really nothing redeeming about her. They change her around a little to feel like she is more evil than the cartoon, specifically with how she treats people in the matter of violence. She is so much more violent in this show than she is in the cartoon. She's out here burning innocent people alive, to even zapping all of the Earth Kingdom military high command with her lightning, which was again very unexpected, and I did not see that coming. She's even dark enough to pit her two closest friends against each other in a match to the death in the beginning of the season, where if they didn't fight each other, she would kill them both because she wants to earn their trust and that relationship that they have between each other. In a way, that kind of piggybacks off their eventual betrayal of her during Boiling Rock, because they really saw her as going too far, and clearly they never were that close of friends, but they feared her more to stick by one another due to her being more evil than anyone else. And listen, this video is not going to be a breakdown of every single thing that happens in the season. These are just some of the examples to bring up where I was a little mixed on how they handled certain things. But I would also say that I think it is important to address a lot of the online discourse around the season so far to get an idea of how other people feel. Of course, with all things these days in online discussion of entertainment media, there's going to be two sides to it. There are going to be people who offer genuine and honest criticism of TV shows or movies or whatever it may be, and then there are just going to be people who either hate everything to hate or love everything to love it. I feel like we are seeing just about everything you can think of, and yet, anytime I go on my feed, it's just nothing but hate, because that's what the algorithm feeds you. Twitter is the worst. Everyone on there needs to get a grip on reality. There are so many ridiculous complaints for this season that show me people don't fully have an understanding of what happens in the cartoon when we are talking about how it is adapted here in live action. It is so bad to the point where you legit have people admitting that they forgot what happened in the cartoon when they tried to make people think that the live action show was misunderstanding what happened. Don't get me wrong, there is absolutely stuff to criticize and address that I would probably agree with from other people, but when you have someone like this talking about the people making the show don't understand Toph because she was bending sand during Earth Rumble 6, you kind of make yourself look embarrassing. It's not that hard to notice that there is clearly rock underneath the ground where they are standing on. This is really not the complaint this guy thinks it is, and for some reason, Twitter is rewarding him for it. If you want to throw a criticism at this sequence in the show, you could have just mentioned the fact that it felt a little lackluster, knowing that Toph only fights the boulder and she doesn't end up fighting any of the other contestants. To me, That's my biggest complaint with the scene. Even stuff like this, where you have someone complaining about how Appa sounds when he makes noises. They got Appa wrong as well. Appa from the animated series is uniquely tritonal. The live-action version is monotonal. This is just how it is these days, where everyone is just grasping at anything they can find to bring something down. It's why I'm so glad that the filmmakers on this series were able to take what was said from season 1 and do what they can with it, because you obviously know there was a lot of stuff thrown at that season that was probably a little unjustified, but they did work hard to make sure that they improved in every way they could. They completely changed the production, and they even brought in new directors and writers to help get that better as well. They went as far to get a director from a show like Shogun and have her come in and direct the finale of season 2, which is really cool. That's a massive upgrade. The finale was honestly pretty decent for the most part. It's just like the finale in the cartoon, even if not everything is the same. It still ends with all of our heroes losing and fighting to live another day as the Fire Nation takes over Ba Sing Se. Overall, factoring in entertainment value, I would rate this season as an 8 out of 10, which is 1 point higher than what I gave season 1. I still think there are some things that can be improved upon, but I do think the crew behind the show took steps to make it better, and so I look forward to seeing it all get closed out next year. And with that being said, I'm going to end the video there. That is my review of season 2. That's everything that I felt was important to address as far as my own feelings. There is certainly more to discuss in the comments with you all, so please be sure to comment down below anything that you want in relation to stuff that maybe I didn't address, as long as it is respectful and reasonable. And also, what are you looking forward to the most for Season 3 coming up next summer? If you did enjoy the video and you want to see more, be sure to give it a like, and if you are new to this channel, subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Thank you all for stopping by Uncle Iroh's Tea Shop. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.